Mistakes that you're making while using your credit card and you don't even know it. That's the topic for today's episode. And without further ado, let's dive in. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode at Novarise Invest. For those who are tuning in for the first time, this is your channel for financial education. So today's video, it's going to be about credit cards. We're going to learn about credit cards. We have created a ton of videos about what to do to improve your credit, what to do right, but I noticed that I never created a video that could highlight anything that could possibly go wrong with your credit and how you can avoid those problems. So without further ado, let's just dive in straight to the board and learn about all of them. So mistake number one, which one do you think that will be? That will be using your credit card for bad debt. Okay. Now, for those who are actually brand new to the whole idea of good debt versus bad debt. So bad debt is something that you have to constantly work yourself out in order to pay for it. You have to work, and pay it out. It's something that doesn't generate value, only generates worries in your life. Example of this is if you spend $1,000 partying in one night or spend $1,000 in Gucci shoes, those type of expenses, those type of debt, maybe they can create some type of psychological joy, an emotional joy on a short-term basis, but over time it creates worries. It doesn't generate any income for you. However, if you are going to look into good debt, right, that type of debt pays itself out. So a great example of good debt is using your credit cards to invest in real estate, because the passive income that you're actually obtaining from those rentals are going to help you pay off the debt on that credit card. Now, mistake number two is not paying your card on time. So not paying on time. And what does that mean, paying on time? So every time you look at a statement, you're gonna see something that is called a due date, okay? So every time you log into your credit card application, every time you log into your credit card account on the computer, every time you get the statement from the credit card company, you will find something that is called a due date. And that due date is just simply the day you should be paying your credit card debt by. So let's say, for example, you will see something as the 29th of October or something like that, right? So let's assume that that's your due date. So that means that the 29th of every single month, that will be your due date. Now, a common mistake people make is that they go in and they pay their credit card exactly on that day. And that's a mistake. And here's why. When you pay exactly on that day, you are setting yourself up for failure, so to speak. Why? Because sometimes the system, depending on the time that you're paying that credit card, might not process your payment on time. Maybe the 29 is falling on a weekend. Maybe the 29 is falling on a holiday. And so that means that your payment that you managed to accumulate with all of your hard work is not going to go through, and it's going to be reflected as a late payment. So how do you fix that? As a golden rule, I like to pay my credit card at least 1 week prior to the due date, okay? So that's my preference. Try to pay it at least 1 week prior. However, there's a couple of other things that you can actually implement to make it easier and to make it better for you, right? So let's assume that you have multiple credit cards. And I'm sure that by the time you get those statements, you're gonna realize that those due dates are gonna be all over the place. One card is gonna be due on the 29th, the other one is probably gonna be due on the 15th, the other one is on the 1st, yada, yada. And so you don't wanna create a mess. You don't wanna stop living just to pay off that credit card. Although some people actually do, right? But we don't want you to be that. So what you can do is just to simply call the bank and request for all of your credit cards to be moved to a particular date. It can be all due on the 29th. You can move them to be all on the 15th, all on the 13th, whatever day works best for you. So that way you are streamlining the payment process down to 1 day instead of multiple days per month. Once you got that set up, there's a second part of the training, which is simply using your salary payment days to your advantage. So I like to think that most of us, so let's say this is our calendar, most of us get paid on the 15th and on the 30th, right? So what I typically like to do is to take whatever money comes in on the 15th to pay my credit cards, and whatever money that I'm getting at the end of each month, that will be to pay my rent or the mortgage in your house, you name it. So that way you don't have to think about it over and over. You know that whatever funds you're getting from your job, whatever salary you're getting on the 15th, it's going to go all towards the credit card. And on top of that, you're paying it in anticipation of the due date. So that way you don't have to deal with any inconveniences, any system failures, and you're always paying your credit cards on time. And you know, the rest is going to go towards the rent. Now, mistake number 3 that people make is paying the minimum on the credit card. And that's a big no-no. And I think that it just creates a lot of confusion. I think the credit card statements are not clear, because every time you get a copy of it, you will see a due date and you will see something that they call a minimum payment, right? So people tend to confuse the minimum payment with the payment that you have to make. So let's say, for example, you get your statement and you read that it says there that your minimum payment is $35. Most people think that that's what they need to pay, the $35 a month, and that's not true. That's just simply a suggestion that the bank is making, that the minimum that you should be paying is $35, but you have the option to pay more. But you know, it's confusing for some people. So that's why you're watching this video, because you want to do the best you can to perfect that credit so that you can grow, you can expand in your business, in your real estate investment, and all that stuff, right? So my golden rule is to pay at least double that minimum payment, right? So that will bring it to 70. Let's say your minimum payment in that credit card is $100, so you should pay $200. You should never pay the minimum, because that means you will never get out of that debt. Why? Because every time you make a payment, it's kind of like a mortgage. Part of it is going to go to interest and the other part is going to go to the principal. So while you're paying the minimum, guess what's going to happen to the debt? The interest that get accumulated, it's going to get added back up to the loan. That's why sometimes you see people with an original credit card debt of $1,000, and then somewhere down the line, 2 years later, they're still paying, I don't know, $2,000 because of all of the interest that got accumulated. So you definitely want to avoid that happening from you. Okay. Now, mistake number 4, and that is open credit cards with retail stores, right? Open credit card with retail stores. So what are examples of those retail stores? So they could be Macy's, they could be Target. And again, not that I am opposed to them, but remember, real estate and business, it's a relationship-based business, right? You want to build a relationship. Last time I checked, Target is not going to help you buy your next rental portfolio. Target is not going to help you reinvest money in your business. So you definitely want to build those banking relationship with banks that you know are going to help you meet that end goal. That bank that's going to get you access to that mortgage. Examples of them could be national banks like Chase, Bank of America, maybe American Express, or any local municipal bank that, you know, it's catered to the needs of their local residents. Those are the brands that you want to be associated with, and not any retail brand. Yes, I get it. They seem very nice in the store and the checkout line when they offer you a 15% discount for that purchase that you're making for the first time. But if you read the fine print, you're going to realize that the interest rates on those cards are actually very, very high. And you definitely don't want to set yourself up to wind up in a situation like that. Okay, now let's move along to the next mistake. And I'm realizing that the board is full. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and clean it up. And while I do that, I'm going to leave you some time to click the like button below right here so you can help this episode rank and help other people like you looking for this kind of information. And if you still have some more free time, feel free to hit the subscribe button so you can keep getting notifications to videos of this kind. Let's move on to mistake number 5. And number 5 is when you max out on your credit card, right? So what does that mean? So let's say, for example, you have a credit card with a credit line for $1,000, right? So maxing out that credit card means using the entire $1,000. Now, I want to clarify something here, because I know this is usually a topic of confusion for some people, because I've also heard the other extreme of the equation, and that's usually the 30%, right? Oh, I'm not going to use more than 30% of my credit line because I don't want to impact my FICO. So that's not necessarily right, but that's not necessarily wrong. Here's how I would do it, right? So let's assume you are working on a flip, or you need to renovate the countertops of the rental that you have, and you need to get access to that full $1,000. You can use that $1,000 as long as you pay the car down to at least 30% of that debt within that same month, which is before that due date. So let's say, for example, you have $1,000 and we're in the month of October, so to speak, right? And so you want to use all $1,000, but now you're afraid that if you max out on your credit card, you're going to impact your credit. But it doesn't have to be this way. You can use the full $1,000, but before the due date, you're going to pay down 70% of that card, which is the equivalent of $700. So that will leave you with the 30% debt that everybody else is talking about. Do not exceed the 30%, which means that you're going to have a balance of $300. Of course, you have the option to pay it all out, but I know that some of you have access to credit cards at a 0% rate. So it's like you don't have any incentive to actually pay it off. But if you have a 0% credit card, you can take advantage of this deal and this breakdown and still maximize your FICO credit score by bringing that debt down to 30%. And while I still have you at this point, I'm going to move on to the mistake number 6, which is very aligned with this one right here. And that's when you don't use your available credit. So when you don't use available credit, why is that bad? Well, if you don't use it, you lose it. So let's say, for example, a student brought up a couple of years ago that she had this credit card with a credit line of $1,000, but she was so petrified to use anything above $300 that she kept it at $300 every single time. She would use up to $300 and then she would pay it down $300, but she would never dare to even hit the $1,000. A couple of months went by and the banks, you know what? They do audits, they check your behavior, they look into it and they say, you know what? This person is not using all of that credit line. It's like it's almost getting wasted. So why do we want to grant her the right to have access to such a large credit line when we can actually take it away from her and just give it to someone else who will actually use all of that credit line available? And indeed, that's what happened. Her credit line got lower from $1,000 to $300 just because she was not using it. So this is a game, right? I'm not suggesting people to go and max out on all their credit cards or to only use 30%. There's got to be a balance. You can't use all of that credit card because if you don't use it, you will lose it. You can use it, but then know the game, pay it down to 70% so that way you're not impacting your credit in a negative way. Now, next mistake, number 7, and that's when your cards are inactive for longer than 12 months. Okay, so don't leave your credit cards inactive for more than 12 months because the banks are gonna cancel your credit card. They're gonna close it because of inactivity, okay? Even if you have to take the card and buy $1 of coffee, use it, swipe it, and then just pay it back down. Just keep it active, okay? Now, the next mistake that people make is to not know how to use 0% offers, okay? Not knowing 0% offers, okay? So there's 2 types of 0% offers. Let's assume you apply for a credit card and you get a brand new car and they say, hey, you're new. Congratulations for joining our pool of customers. And as a reward, we're going to give you a 0% offer for the next 12 or 15 months on all the purchase that you're making for the next 12 to 15 months. That's great. However, there are other credit cards that they try to incentivize that you use them for balance transfer purposes. That could be a new credit card or an existing credit card that you have. In fact, I always get lured by the credit card companies when I'm not using my credit card for a certain period of time. So they start sending me letters through the mail. They provide pop-ups in my credit card application with offers for balance transfer. And the end goal is to incentivize you to use their credit cards. And why not? If you have a credit card that you're paying a debt at 24%, why wouldn't you want to transfer that balance into this other credit card with a 0%? Now, I have to let you know that in order for this to work, it has to be between different banks, right? So let's say, for example, if you have a high balance card at 24% with Chase and you have a card that is giving you a 0% balance transfer, you cannot transfer those between Chase. But if the balance transfer card is a Citibank card, let's say, for example, then you can move the debt around from that Chase card into that Citibank card, okay? Now, you might be wondering, how do I find out about those 0% credit card offers on my existing cards? Very easy. The banks always are sending you offers in the letter to incentivize you, to lure you to use that 0% offer. Another way to find out about them is just by simply logging to your credit card account, look into the computer, look into your account, or simply just log into your phone application and scroll all the way down, and you will typically find the offers at the bottom. And if that doesn't work, another way you can find those offers is just by simply doing a Google search. So let's say, for example, if you have a Chase card, all you gotta do is just to simply go into the Google search box and type in balance transfer offers Chase credit cards. If your bank is with Citibank, then you will type in balance transfer offers with Citibank. And that's how you're gonna get access to links that you're gonna click on and will take you immediately to the page where you can actually request to get access to the 0% balance transfer offer. Now, back to the board and to the very last one. Horrible mistake that people tend to make is to close their credit cards. Okay? Never, ever close the credit cards. Why? Because time, it's a very important factor that it's taken into consideration in your FICO score. It's not the same to have someone with a 720 FICO and a 1-year credit history versus a person that has a 720 and a 10-year history, right? Think of it as dating, right? You don't marry with the first person that comes to you, right? You date them, you get to know them, you give it some time, sometimes a couple of months, sometimes a couple of years, right? Before you can truly trust this person and then transition into something more formal, like getting married with this person. Well, the same thing is with the credit card. Yeah, you have a 1-year credit history. Great, good for you. But you know what? If somebody else comes in with a 10-year credit history, they're gonna get that preferential treatment, not you. So don't close those credit cards. Now, I understand that some of you might be saying, you know what? The annual fees on that credit card is killing me. And I understand it's costly, especially in times of inflation. So what you can do is just to simply call the bank and say, you know what? I want to downgrade the credit card that I currently have to one that has 0 membership fees. And that's how you do it. That's how you manage to continue to maintain the credit line without having to pay the unnecessary expensive fees. So that's pretty much all I have for you today. Hopefully you found the episode very valuable and useful for you. And don't forget to share the love and spread the knowledge so that other people can benefit of this content as well. And when I still have you here, do not forget to check this episode right here. That's going to help you complement pretty much everything you just learned today. And until then, take care. Bye-bye.